We were so fortunate to sit down with Ben and Ronnie from the Bravo-tastic podcast, Watch What Crappens.
After we covered the crimes of Jen Shah, we wanted to get the insights of some Real Housewives experts, and nobody knows Bravo better than Ben and Ronnie.
We also talk about who our favorite housewives are, updates on the housewife and the hustler, Erika, Jayne, and Tom Girardi, and all our hot takes on Jen Shah's alleged crimes.
You can also check us out on their feed in a bonus episode where we discuss Teddi Mellencamp's multi-level marketing scheme and the various lawsuits of PK and Dorit on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Be sure to check out their show, Watch What Crappens, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again to Ben and Ronnie, our new BFFs, for joining us, and we hope you all enjoy our conversation. Hello, y'all. We are here with our two friends, Ben and Ronnie from Watch What Crappens.
Oh, we're so excited.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us. It's really cool to finally meet you two.
It's same. Oh, we love your show and you as people. We feel like by the end of this, we're all going to be BFFs. So just
That's the plan.
So far, so
this was
good.
kind of our plan.
Let's
yes.
do it. Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, be careful. We're very needy.
Well, I think we have a lot in common as far as our love for not only watching the Bravo shows, but like deep dive breaking down what's going on. And we've been really digging into old Jen Shah's past here. I feel like she would throw a glass at me for calling her old Jen Shah.
Well, you know what? You know what? I am really excited to talk about Jen Shah because really in all of the crimes on Bravo, Jen Shah, I feel like gets the least attention because it's like scamming old people. And I don't know, it's like we all feel bad about it, but it's like we need the old people to have been in a plane crash.
Yeah.
And we need them to it's just dwarfed by kind of the Erika and Tom stuff. And it's actually pretty interesting. And she's done a really good job, or whoever has done a really good job of not getting that much info out. It's hard to piece stuff together.
Yeah, I think she's trying to duck the press as much as possible. And her lawyer actually filed a motion with the court to strike the letter from the federal prosecutors that kind of called her a mastermind, but it was too late. I mean, all the media outlets picked it up, but they're actively fighting as much information getting out as possible, except for information that makes her look like poor, pitiful me, which we'll definitely get into.
Which she is famous for. Zero accountability, everything somebody else's fault. I just watched the episode, the ice fight. And I was like, girl, take some responsibility for things.
Say I'm sorry.
Twitter, for crying out loud.
All you gotta do is say I'm sorry.
She's really benefiting from being like only in the Bravo world for 1 year because Erika has been with us for 6 or 7 years. There's been a lot of time for us to sort of develop feelings and senses of betrayal around her crimes. Whereas Jen Shah, like when the news broke, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is gonna be everyone like went nuts. But everyone's like, yeah, well, it makes sense. Jen Shah. Yeah.
And like you said, I think Erika and Tom set the bar for just heinousness of crimes. And so Jen Shah was lucky as far as timing went, but she did some pretty bad stuff. And it wasn't just recently. It's been going on.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like a decade. Yeah.
Right.
But
you guys, my contacts. My contacts were dry.
Like, I
was me in there. My eyes hurt. I didn't know what I was signing. I'm like, what?
I was so emotional. I'm like, you're getting arrested, right? We were all emotional.
Yes. If you're not emotional, you're a robot.
I actually have a serious question, though.
What
about my sons? What about my sons?
God, yes.
What about my sons?
What did I do to your son, Jen? What did I do to your kids?
I do your kids.
Tell me, Jen Shah.
Spot on. I'm trying to
feel
figure
like
out.
I feel like you, Ben, and Meredith have something in common right now because you just had dental work, so you're kind of numb on one side, and that's kind of like what is going on with her mouth.
Well, is also wearing a breastplate at the moment, which is super mysterious.
And I'm also very elegant. You know, the truth is, Christy, that whether I had dental procedures or not is really not up for you to declare until I've had that conversation with you.
No one's mentioned it before. I think am I crazy? Or is this season I feel like she's actively trying to open her mouth more. That in season 1, she kind of talked like between her teeth and didn't move. And I feel like now she's very like opening her mouth almost arguably too wide in the confessionals that I find it disturbing and I can't stop looking at her.
Her whole movement is just like, well, I'm going to open up more and here's how I'm going to do it.
It's like an acting coach was like
physically opening up more.
Yes, it's like her
It's a
head
lot.
moves like within an 8-foot distance in
Yes.
every sentence. It's
Yeah,
like,
you got to
you're in my
stand back
space.
when you're
Well-
talking to her. You'll get bonked in the face by something.
I think it's
on
too
her.
much exposure to Seth, because if you actually watch Seth, the way he talks, his jaw like snaps open and closed like a snap turtle. He's like, you gotta get ready for the party tonight, and so it's always like this, like rah, rah, rah. And so I
Yeah.
think that she's just sort of been around him a little bit too much since they're like repairing their marriage.
That's true. He's back 50% of the time, and that's like
Yes.
40% too
It's
much.
really
for us.
affecting her job work. Yeah.
That's
That's
right.
50% too much, if you ask me. Why didn't they just call it quits?
I
He's
know.
the
Shut it down.
worst. He's
Shut
the
it
worst.
down.
They
Yeah.
seem to like be like a party couple. I think they're one of those couples that's always fucked up together, because every time I see them, they look like they're massively wasted on something. And it doesn't seem like alcohol. I mean, as someone who just is like a huge fan of drugs over like different periods of my life, you know,
Sure,
so I'm
me too.
just to let that out there so I don't sound like a total hypocrite. I'm always just trying to figure out what drugs people are on, but whatever those two are on looks great, because they're so, it's like, you know, it's like that drug induced couple, and then you have to be sober together sometimes, and you just hate each other's guts, so
Yeah.
just keep getting fucked up for the rest of your lives.
Or
Yeah.
just leaving town. Being like,
Yeah.
love you, see you next
Or
time.
you just moved
Yes.
to Ohio or Mississippi or where,
Yeah.
wherever.
Right, I'll see you on weekends, which is what? The time that everybody gets fucked up.
Party
Okay.
time.
See you then.
Yeah.
Ben party
Like,
time.
I didn't realize how boring you were till you were here on a Tuesday. We do not get along
We should get a
now.
divorce.
Our relationship doesn't work on Tuesdays.
No. Who is y'all's favorite housewife this season?
I mean, I always, God, I love so many of them. I always get a kick out of Lisa Barlow. She just cracks me up. I know that she's like a villain, but everything she does. I love that.
I
Oh
love
my God.
that.
I love that. Do you want some
that.
Diet Coke?
Love this.
Some Diet Coke?
Love this.
I appreciate that she does not take any shame in the fact that she just feeds her kids straight garbage all the time, just
Mhm.
all going through drive-throughs constantly, and she's like, "This is just how I am," and
And then
owns
just
it.
ignores them the rest of the time. Just like,
And she
don't
does-
call me.
Sundance.
unless
Mommy's
she's
MIA.
profiting. Yeah, unless she's profiting off of them. I tend to come from a place of negativity. Like, that's where I feel best. That's where I feel most positive.
relate.
So I don't like to pick a favorite. I usually like to just pick people that I don't like, you know, because
Okay.
that's how I feel warm.
Yeah.
And Jen Shah, I think, is just such a copycat, which is why I don't like
Mhm.
her. I think she's a tryhard. She just copies literal lines from other housewives. So she bugs me. And Whitney really bugs me. And I know that everybody is really loving Whitney, but Whitney just, does she even have ears?
She also just can't hold a cake. It's not that
She can't
cakes
hold a
have been
cake,
around for
yeah.
So
decades,
good.
for
That was
centuries,
so
That was-
good.
and you just can't hold a cake.
Well, she'd taken
So rude.
83 shots with her stepsons prior to trying to take that cake out back.
See, here's what
And
I like
then
about, yeah,
Serve it to
sorry.
people.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
yeah.
See, what I like about Lisa Barlow is that she does her power moves by withholding catering for people. Like, I think that
Dude.
was, I don't know if you saw this week's
Monster.
episode,
Yes.
but the fact that she just like manipulated a catering situation, and
She
and
did
there's
For
the-
like a charity.
well, that they actually went online and they said that they were contacted by Bravo, and that the Bravo producer asked them not to show up or something like that. That's what Aubrey
Ooh.
said.
Do you
on
guys want
social
the
media.
crime? Do you guys want to go
Yes.
through that crime real quick?
Yes.
Because
That's a
you
good
know I've been
crime.
obsessed with it. I love a stupid crime. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so basically this Aubrey chick who's the caterer, Aubrey and Marco. So Aubrey said, and they're posting texts too. Like Lisa posted texts, Aubrey posted texts. So there's receipts. So basically Angie's full of it and trying to make this big storyline to get herself
love.
as a housewife, which
She
for her.
seemed like
did a
she
great
was
job.
trying.
Right.
Mhm.
So she did a great job, but basically I think Lisa Barlow was vindicated. So Lisa had contacted them because Aubrey and Marco are opening a new restaurant. So they wanted it on the show. So they had already talked to Lisa about filming there. So then Angie called them and said, well, I'm doing this party. And they were like, okay, well, that sounds fun. We'll talk to Bravo Production about it. Then they talked to Dina at Bravo Production. That's
Dina
a very
Manzo.
important name.
Dina Manzo.
Dina.
Mm.
It's like, no, this is
Oh.
gonna be a brownstone catered event.
And Dina told them, well, you can cater it for free or heavily discounted, but you're not necessarily going to get, we can't promise that you're going to get exposure, because this Angie lady says she's like worth zillions of dollars wants free shit because she's a housewife. So
Mhm.
she wanted free stuff, and they said, well, you can still do it for free, but we're not going to promote you. So Aubrey was like, why would we do that? We've already talked to Lisa about coming to our restaurant, which is more important anyway, and we will get exposure. So we're just going to stick with that. So she got off the phone with Dina, texted Angie, but because she said, we've already talked to Lisa or something, Angie took it and was like, well, your name was there, so you must have done this to me, and
trying to stir it up. Stir it up.
I still, I'm even though Lisa is vindicated, I still feel like she has the capability to do a power move through catering. So that's why she's still my favorite.
I really like Heather. I think Heather's my favorite. I feel like she's someone that I would honestly hang out with, and I really respect how she raises her girls and just like so proud of them for not just following the traditions that she was brought up in, and really wants them to like just go be themselves and do what makes them happy.
Yeah, I like Heather too.
Yeah, Heather's a fan favorite for sure.
I think she had a rough reunion. I think she was maybe feeling herself a little too much after fan reaction of the first season, and went a little too nuts for me in the reunion. Yeah, so she kind of lost some points there for me, but then I'm loving her again this season. And I love that she eats, and I love all of her lines about
she's
eating.
Just on Watch What Happens, just like eating hummus. Like, hang on, I have to finish this hummus right now. It's like, just the food is like a display, and she's like, no, it ain't. You put it out, I'm gonna eat it. It's like, I highly relate to that.
And her lines are really funny, like her and Whitney just sitting there on the ice watching watching Jen lose their mind, and just being like, well, I can't walk over to that side of the ice because I lied on my weight.
I saw that, and I was like, I would totally have done that.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah, that was maybe the biggest atrocity of this season. To give you their stats, it's like, no, thank you.
Well, yeah, and then my favorite, Jen Shah, was like, can I have your social security number and your birthday and this? I'm not going to steal your identity. I was like, yeah, she is. She's for sure going to steal an identity.
Yeah, just send over your fingerprint and a strand of hair.
Okay. Yeah, we just need the last 4 numbers of your social before we get on that ice, and your mother's maiden name. Thank you very much. Just the trout need to know.
You start getting Reader's Digest, and what the hell? So what is this? So what is it? She's basically calling and saying, okay, you want to start your own internet company, and they give her money for like some kind of a package, and then she's supposed to build them a website and set them up with, like, I don't know, Shopify. This is all just an example.
Yeah, and it's not even that. So actually, I'm a lawyer by trade, and before going full-time with the podcast, I worked at Legal Aid, and all my clients were over 60 victims of crimes and abuse.
Wow.
And financial abuse specifically. And I actually had a client that was victim to these are called business opportunity schemes. And it's exactly what you described. She got a phone call, and let's say her name was Betty Smith. And it was like, hey, Miss Betty Smith, do you want to make money by not doing anything and working at home? And of course you say yes, because of course we would all like that if it were not a lie. Yeah, if it wasn't a lie. And so then they built her this website and charged her like, $8,000. They said they're going to do like ongoing assistance. She sent me the website, and it's like bettysmith.whatever this company was.com. And technically, yeah, it had products listed. It had like iPads and laptops, but she didn't have a computer. So Betty Smith had no idea how this worked. She couldn't access it to confirm it. She just told us the website over, when she called in for help, because of course that's like her whole life savings. And she explained to us that she was told, oh, well, everybody buys computers from the internet. So they're going to go on the internet, and instead of buying it from Amazon, they'll just buy it from your website. Okay. Like in theory, that could possibly happen. But if you or I or anybody in this call is going to say, okay, I'm going to Google buy laptop online, it's not going to come up bettysmith.shopwondery.com. Right. It's going to come up Amazon, Apple, Dell, whatever. And so while she technically got a website, it's worthless at the end of the day, because no one's ever going to use it. So that's the scam they were perpetuating on people. And so the FTC is civil. So if you get sued by the FTC, they can charge you a big old fine, and they can enjoin you and tell you you're not allowed to do this crime anymore, or not allowed to do this scam anymore. Well, when the Department of Justice steps in, that's when it becomes criminal, and that's when you can go to jail.
So Jen got tangled up in this with Thrive first.
Correct.
And my thought would be, if you got out of that without really any sort of fines or prison time, maybe you sort of move away from that line of work.
You would think.
Yeah.
So she's listed, as like a VP of business operations. So there's a structure chart that shows she's like on the second to third level down from the ownership. Well, when the ownership all gets busted and gets kicked out of business, I think that's a market opportunity. Well, I don't, because I'm not a scammer. But if one was a scammer and your bosses all get booted for doing something, you then can think, okay, I can step into their shoes and run the same scam on people
and not get caught because I'll
hopefully
do it better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Is you like, okay, well, I learned the lessons from it, and this way I'm going to,
It's like when psychopaths start taking, when they start going to therapy and just learn how to be better psychopaths.
Yes.
And then, you know,
like,
you're like, wait a minute,
this.
but he seems like such a nice guy. It's like, no, they just learned.
It's like the mafia. It's like if a bunch of like mobsters get arrested, it's not like the rest of them are like, oh wow, I almost went to jail. I should probably not be doing this anymore.
Like, well, we learned not to.
I'm gonna rise up,
not rat somebody out. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of this, reading up on her, a lot of the most confusing things about these crimes is how she describes what she does.
Oh yeah,
because none of it is true as far as we know. It's just
talking in circles. Yeah.
Right. And it sounds like it could be true. And look, when she first said this on the show or in the reunion or whatever last year when they asked her, and she's like, well, marketing, because like direct, like if you do direct things clicking on the internet niche, marketing, direct. And we're like, oh, I get it. She's like somebody on Facebook and then she sends me iron ads or whatever. It kind of makes sense because none of us really understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're like, okay.
It's like saying, well, I'm a mafioso and I run an Italian restaurant. And you're like, in the front part, you do.
Exactly.
So on the front part, sure, maybe she does like click lead generations. But when you take those names to the back and then sell them to people who are going to call them and scam them, that's when the government takes issue with that.
And we definitely, like, when we were just like watching the show last season, we definitely picked up on that something was fishy. When she said she's in direct sales and that's what she does, we're like, okay, so you are the one who like generates junk mail, basically. Like you're the one who, like, the reason why we have like a million of these like flyers or whatever, that's because of you. And you're trying to make it sound like you are, like should be on CNBC talking about marketing practices when all you do is like send out these postcards.
No,
so
it's
this quote is from US or Us Magazine, and it's from Housewives Nightcap podcast or on Access Hollywood's Housewives Nightcap. She says, people will come to me and I'll invest in their companies. So we have got a lot of different investments, a lot of different kinds of things. I've been able to do it because what I've been able to carve out, the niche I've been able to carve out in the direct response marketing world, the end.
It's just nonsense.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the grift is you just feed people these buzzwords and you're like, oh, marketing, niche. Okay, yeah. I don't, like you said, Ronnie, I don't know enough about it to know that she's wrong. I just know that, like, I don't understand it. And she takes advantage of that. And that's how they also take advantage of the victims too.
And then she's saying, she continues, because none of this makes sense. Okay. So ads popping to you guys and they're like, how the hell do they know I'm shopping at Neiman Marcus? That's me. If you think about it, you know how much traffic is on the internet every second, all the people clicking. I'm making money on every click. Anytime you click on anything, I'm getting some money. I think because I've been blessed to be successful with my marketing background and my companies, I've really found a niche. I mean, what are you talking about? Every time somebody clicks on the internet, you get money. No, you don't.
No.
How does that work?
Damn sense.
How does that work?
I mean, again, she may run some type of like cookie company which not the good kind of cookies, but where it tracks your browsing history.
Not Mrs. Fields.
But that's but that's not that's not where she's making the money. She's making the money from these people paying $8,000 for useless websites. And
do you know how many people click on the internet each day? She would just
a billionaire.
She
wouldn't be renting her chalet.
I mean, this is a fairly standard thing. I mean, a lot of times people on Real Housewives are renting something that's like way beyond their means, or just whether it's a house or a car. I mean, I'm thinking of like Gretchen and Slade with their like Rolls Royce that they rented for a day to shoot a scene where it's like, oh wow, look at our new Rolls Royce. It's like, no, you do not have that Rolls Royce.
Because on that show, Meredith is also in a new rental, right?
And is that a rental? I was wondering if that was
like a condo looking thing.
I think so.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's never disclosed either way what it is.
No,
I don't think we have a conversation about it.
Don't speculate.
You know,
it's not
difficult
fair.
It is for a 20-year-old toddler.
She said, my 20-year-old baby. You're like, that's me.
Child. How could you talk about this house being rented or not in front of my child, my sweet little innocent child?
A baby.
Well, it's
It
like when
doesn't make zero
Jackson.
sense.
It's like when Jackson Brittany got fired. No, I'm sorry, totally quit. Vanderpump Rules, and Jackson's like, he said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, we've got like a new show on a huge. It's like the biggest network. It's YouTube. Okay, it's like they're. Like have you heard of the internet? It's global.
It's global. We're an international superstars. So again, it's not like they were just bopping along in their internet business and had no idea that they could possibly run afoul of federal regulators. They were like deposed and had lawyers before.
Yeah.
So they can't just be like,
well,
we
it's
can't
the same.
believe.
Not like they, we
it's
didn't
the
realize
same
what
with
we were
the
doing was wrong.
Girardis. Yeah, it's the same with Erika. Like she had been deposed long before this, so she knew that shady shit was going on.
Yeah, there were like there were old articles when I was looking at some for PK and Dorit. I was looking up things and it said, meanwhile, Erika and Tom were also sued. And I was like, this article's from like 2019 for client funds. So I was like, there was brewing, there's stuff brewing. So
yeah, that's what I was saying too. That's what's made me so infuriated with the whole Erika storyline this season. I mean, they did show a clip of her on Watch What Happens during the last season, when Andy brought up through a viewer question, of course, that
he writes those. He writes hateful things and puts fake names.
Totally.
Like, well, how could you criticize someone else's money when Tom is being sued, and what's going on with that lawsuit? And she said, well, that lawsuit, they dropped it and they apologized. They dropped it and they apologized. And I looked it up when that happened, and I was like, no, they didn't. Like, unless it's just unless it's just some magical world where they just don't print stuff like that. Because really, until something goes viral and everyone's like glomming onto it, it is hard to find information. So I did a deep dive on Erika's stuff last year, and I could kind of see that he was moving money around. And I guess all the housewives apparently knew too, because anybody who has a Google alert set up for themselves, and all the housewives do, had access to all of this information. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting seeing it leak out, but it takes like years and years for anybody to care enough.
Well,
I also would not be surprised if Tom told Erika, oh yeah, we settled it and they apologized. We just have to do some paperwork. And she doesn't seem to question anything that he does. And she turns a blind eye. So she's like, oh yeah, no, it's settled and they're happy. And they're actually going to buy us a car now,
It's all, I think it's like willful ignorance. To be fair, like some of the Jen Shah stuff, I had to know I have a login to get into the federal court system and then pull the federal. So, I mean, you can get some pieces of lawsuits and things from, newspaper articles or newspaper. I do read the paper, magazine, online articles, but also a lot of the real juicy stuff that we found when we covered Tom and Erika was from like court filings that I had to go and pull. And it's a huge pain. So I think they do on purpose try to just pay no attention, as Kyle Richards says, sweep it under the carpet, the carpet. She doesn't say under the rug. She says under the carpet.
Just like actually put up from the side of the wall, slide it under there. Remove
the carpet. Everyone's. I love Kyle, but I hate how much I love Kyle. I hate myself for loving Kyle. I hate it.
What's wrong with you?
I hate it. I hate it.
That's the thing with all of these housewife criminals is they just like the limelight so much that it overshadows the fact that like you could be arrested for all of this, but they're just like so proud of themselves for what they're doing that they can't keep their mouth shut.
She cannot.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is bad. It's just stupidity, 100%.
Well,
watch her say that she didn't even say it. Watch her be like, I was misquoted.
I know.
Do you know what
she literally
like
does
your
though?
Words used against you.
That is how she
things for me.
That is how she's working it with everything. I mean, everything is like, what? I had a dry contact. When they brought me in, I had a dry contact and it was really hurting. And so I'm not responsible for anything I said. And
so I didn't scam anyone. And you're like, I think those two are unrelated.
Meredith's showing her screenshots of, you liked this tweet. Look, this is you. Blue verified check. That's not me. I don't run my Twitter. I mean, it's wild how unaccountable she is for stuff.
Oh yeah.
Just looking somebody straight in the face line.
Yeah. But happy to take accountability on on a macro level. Like, well, I'm basically I'm the Wizard of Oz controlling everything. But no, I don't do that. I don't run that. I don't know who does that.
Well, when it makes her look good, yeah.
So when she was talking about her contact lenses, she says, my contact lenses, they were in my eyes, they were dry, and I did not have my reading glasses, so my vision was blurry and I was unable to read the paper in front of me. Her lawyers claim, this is from page 6. Her lawyers claim she signed the paper as a direct result of law enforcement deception and trickery calculated to overpower her will.
Oh, really bad news. The police are allowed to lie to you. So in all 50 states, they're allowed to lie to you during interrogations. And the only thing, and so she was trying to argue that her Miranda rights were violated, which you can waive your Miranda rights as long as it's voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently. And like, there's been cases where, that we read in law school where like somebody is basically unconscious, but the fact that they're like, okay, what's your name? Bob Smith. Do you know who I am? You're the police. Okay, I'm going to read you your Miranda. And they're like on drugs in a hospital, and that still counts as voluntary. The bar is very low. So her being like, I was emotionally overwhelmed and my eyes were itchy. The court was like, no, we don't buy that. Also,
don't care.
In her declaration, which was attached, that's from her motion to dismiss. And that's the declaration. She actually says, and yeah, I mean, I know they read everything out to me on the paper. And even one part when I asked them to repeat it, they repeated it. But still, I didn't know what I was signing. It was like, wait a minute.
She thought she was like signing up for like a Hammaker Schlemmer catalog. I don't know what.
She's like, this isn't Sky Mall.
She says, I was at this point very confused and emotionally off balance from the strange series of events. Okay, Lemony Snicket. And I thought I might have been the victim of a false identification. Jen, they had they said your name 10 times when they arrested you. And then one of the cops is like, no, actually, she did say her eyes were dry. So we paused everything and we gave her
the contact
solution. And then we waited for her to feel better. It's like they knew. It's like they saw her coming from
very nice. Very nice Utah police officers.
And she says it in her declaration. She's like, and then they unhandcuffed me from the chair and let me get in my purse and put my I'm like, so you're admitting that they totally told you what was going on. She's like, I thought they were my friend. I was like, since when would that ever be? They cuffed you. She's like, granted, I was put in handcuffs. I was like, so you're not friends.
They're like, would you like some of this saline solution? All right, that's from Shadrach.
This was like one of the most epic openings of a season 2. It was just packed with so much juicy stuff.
Could you imagine what it must have been like to be Heather Gay in that moment where it's
so
like,
juicy.
Like Jen just goes away and like, oh, that's so strange. And then all of a sudden, like feds show up, like we're looking for Jen Shah. Like I could not be like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, what are we supposed to do right now? And especially because what I think she forgot, or maybe wasn't really, this is what happens with Erika Girardi or any number of these women that get into, especially Erika though, legal troubles. Like your life is filmed. So the version that you try to tell later, if it totally contradicts, we have actual video footage of you doing that. So it's always like they think they're smarter than the cameras.
Yeah.
Or to even go on TV when you're doing all that kind of shit. I mean, it's like Teresa Giudice paying for all that furniture with cash, just like basically like cashing everything.
I'm helping
around.
Everyone. It's cash. I'm helping the economy. Well, I guess, but it's also untraceable. So
yeah. So Jen got arrested on camera, but the problem is she told basically she made a declaration to the court that she received an anonymous call from a stranger who told her that Coach Shah told her to come home. And that then she received a call from an NYPD detective, and that detective told her that she basically needed to pull over and wait for him. And then when he showed up, he arrested her. And she claims that she didn't think that she was really being arrested because she had previously filed a protective order against an individual that she has redacted their name, but she calls them Individual One. So that's kind of how she portrayed it.
So she filed a protective order, meaning
years
that
before.
like years before to protect herself from someone.
Yes, to protect herself from an unnamed individual who beat her up, is what she alleged at least 3 times.
So now I would like to use this as a segue to some of the research that I did, which was that I noticed there was actually a surprisingly comprehensive article in Us Weekly, which we may have already referenced. And, it mentioned some of the people who are the other like 9 or 10 people who are kind of like co-conspirators. And I was like, gosh, these names don't sound like the sort of names I would necessarily hear in Utah. So I decided to Google some of them.
Oh.
And I basically, what came up was an article. It's actually several articles that were all out of New Jersey. And so the people who've been charged, we have Joseph Ciaccio, Joseph DiPaola, Derek Larkin, Maddie Cirillo, Joseph Minetto, Anthony Chidi.
Oh my God, it's like The Bachelorette starring Teresa Giudice.
I mean, so I like listen, I tried to do some research on this. I couldn't get very far, but basically many Italian Americans from New Jersey have been implicated in this with Jen Shah, and now she has a protective order against someone who may have beat her up. Do we think that if we looked hard enough that we might find some mob ties to all this?
Well, that's what she says, that the person that beat her up was in New York and was related to this whole scam. And of course the name is redacted, but one of the name floors, like basically the lead trading floors where they would trade these leads among these scam companies, was located in Manhattan. So this lawsuit against her, the criminal charges against her, stem from the Southern District of New York. So she was doing, talking to a judge in New York remotely from Utah. So I think you're right that there is at least a New York, New Jersey connection. And I mean, what's the biggest organized criminal enterprises up there is usually something that's tied to the mafia. So I don't think that that's outlandish to think that there could be some tie, because, if back in the day you traded because of prohibition, you traded in alcohol. Well, now what's more valuable? People's information. So you would just update your scam to trade in what's more valuable. So her, at the end of the day, the complaint basically says she and Stewart have been participating in this scheme from 2012 through 2021, which if we look at the timeline, Thrive was sold in 2011 or 2013. So they would have had started this way back when they worked together at these companies that have already been busted by the FTC in the past.
Yeah. And it said that we couldn't really find exactly how she got busted, but from the affidavit from Homeland Security, it looks like there were 6 cooperating witnesses. So somebody flipped on her and ratted her out.
I'm sure it's one of these, because Ben mentioning all those names, I just Googled one, Maddie Cirillo. Was it Cirillo? And it came up with the case against all of these people: Chidi, Allen, Hannah Brewster, Handren, Chaucio, wow, Minetto, DePaula, Larkin. I love that it's like Kim DePaula,
Oh my God,
like we actually know some of these names. We should actually call Kim. And some of these, I'm just reading this whole charge. So this is pretty interesting. Where did I see Utah here? So I'm so sorry. Let me just Utah, one of 2 matches. Okay, here we go. So as a general matter, leads were initially generated by sales floors operating in, among other places, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, including those sales floors operated by all the people. They operated in coordination with several telemarketing sales floors in New York and New Jersey area, including in Manhattan, and provided lead lists and fulfillment services to other co-conspirators. So when they say floors, I mean, I'm picturing like the boiler room of like people just in their little cubicles going crazy trying to get the top sales and doing I mean, this is huge. So for her to be saying she's the mastermind and the top of all of this, she's really going to be screwed.
Well, it's not just her saying that. The government filed something with the court that called her a tier 1 mastermind suspect, that she was right up there with the other people that have already been sentenced to 8 to 10 years in jail. So, and then the fact that she's on Access Hollywood going, I'm the mastermind. You're like, shut it.
I'm the wizard of all.
Of course, the question is how long before she just throws Stu Chains under the bus, right? Because we know that's what's going to really happen.
Yeah.
if it's like her versus him, I bet you she would flip on him.
For sure. Yes.
Is there an article that one of them is going to be flipping on the other? I forgot who it was. If Stu's flipping on her, I think Stu's flipping on her, right?
I think in this case, it's whoever goes first is going to be the winner, because but they have text messages, emails. They said the government had like 270 or 227 gigs of data and over 1.3 million documents that they turned over to her lawyers, that her lawyers are now stressed out. So they're like, we can't go through all these.
1.3
Our
million
contacts
documents.
Are dry. How are we supposed to go through all of this?
I can't read it.
Do y'all think Coach knew?
Yeah, well, I do now. I mean, after reading all of this, because these lawsuits are nothing new. This is not, and all these partners and everything else. Also, something else about Coach Shah is he was in that video. You remember that video that was leaked last year of Jen screaming at that designer who made her the dress, and it was like her being really abusive. She's like, "This is me at the mother effing reunion."
monster.
throwing things around and like, have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
And she's just going crazy. I think it's about her reunion dress, and they're secretly filming her on their cell phone.
Oh.
And she's losing it, like leaving the room screaming, fuck you, and then coming back in and being like, and you think you can do this to me? Do you know who I am? And and then she'll leave again, and then she'll come back and start screaming again, just cursing them out and treating all of the employees like crap. And you see a couple of the people who are working with her just like timid and hiding. And Coach Shah's there just kind of like, he's like, come on, honey, like calm down or whatever. So it's not like he's shocked at who he's married to, and he's certainly not shocked that any of this stuff has gone down. Maybe not to the extent it has, but
he does that whole thing. Whenever we see him on the show, he's always like hey honey, how are you? Ooh, let's go ballroom dancing. There's like this weird sort of like, I'm just a nice sweet guy, which makes me wonder like, oh, like is he in on it? Like you're almost so sweet and nice and supportive.
Too
it makes
sweet.
me I'm like, now I'm suspicious of it.
Well, and he was a lawyer before he was a coach. So he has
was
a JD.
he really?
Yeah, so he's a JD from University of Utah and a master's degree before that. And he was a commercial litigator and a plaintiff's attorney, like a personal injury lawyer, while he was like simultaneously a sports agent and also working in sports radio. So it's like he never went to be home. I mean, would you if you're married to her? But he clearly understands the legal processes, especially if she's been deposed by the FTC before.
Yeah. I think he's the one that called her. Why would she answer, hey, baby, to a random person calling her?
I assumed it was him.
Yeah, I did too. But now she's saying it was someone on his behalf because I think she's trying to protect him.
Right, because the initial story says her husband called her and told her what was going on, and that she her cousin or somebody came to pick her up, who, now that we've seen the season, I'm like, oh, is it the cousin that she says she saved
from South Central? Yeah,
right. And so it looks, now all this stuff is kind of coming together, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So ultimately it'll be interesting to see what happens when she goes to trial, unless somebody flips on somebody and pleads out before that.
It's a big, this is like probably I feel like it's the biggest Housewives crime that we've seen.
Yeah, and for some reason, like you said, it's not getting as much airtime. Whether it, like you said, it's not as juicy of victims. I mean, it's this. I worked at legal aid, so all my clients that were seniors that got scammed, that was like their only money. So if it's like, oh, they're out $800 or even $8,000, that's significant to them. So sad. But I mean, she was doing it on a mass scale.
It's just also that it's not that the victims aren't really worthy of the attention. It's just like the salaciousness of it.
Yeah.
And also Erika's stuff is like, Erika didn't commit the crime, her husband did, right? But Erika, there's some mystery there, because it's like, not only did she know, but did she help him? Like, was he committing these crimes to give her all this money?
Yeah,
right.
Which
because
it looks like
because there have been quotes of people saying like, he was doing this, it got really bad with Erika because he couldn't tell her no,
exactly.
Or like the moving the money, like, is there money that was moved into LLCs? Like, is she helping him with this huge stuff? So there's all this stuff that there's still kind of a mystery, I think, that makes the Erika stuff more fascinating. Whereas with Jen, it's like, oh no, you're guilty. You're guilty.
And it was like immediately came out that she got arrested like right after the first season. So like you said with Erika, you kind of fall in love with her and you're like, oh, she doesn't hold back, and she's got this whole other personality. Versus Jen Shah, you're like, oh, okay, well, we'll see what season 2, bro. And she's getting arrested immediately.
I think that Ronnie's onto something. I think that with Erika, there's kind of like this idea of like, we don't really know how we're supposed to be mad at her, like what we're supposed to be mad at her for. And I think that confusion is making us more angry, like, because either she is complicit with Tom and she divorced to help him squirrel away money, which is shady, or she didn't know at all, but the moment that the money ran out, she got the hell out of there, which is also kind of like shady. So like,
either way, like,
I want to be mad at her, but I'm not quite sure which lane I should like direct my anger towards.
And also, we can't forget that Tom is a hero. Like, Tom was a living legend hero. Like, he was, there was a character based on him in, the Aaron Brockovich. So he was also, it's like a fall from, it's like a Titan's fall from grace also. Whereas Jen is like, oh god, she's that lady who's calling me trying to get my social security number
every time. She's been shitty since the beginning.
With Erika, it's like the audience was lied to. Like the audience was told, here is this this amazing, strident, independent woman who stands for everything. And like this, she's an example of all these great, working hard and she's determined and she's like independent and she won't kowtow to like any sort of like bullshit. And then we're finding like, oh, we've been lied to for many years. Whereas Jen Shah, we were never lied to. It's like Jen Shah was always kind of like, no one really confused her as like an aspirational figure ever. So like this is just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's exactly what we expected. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she's sketched from day one.
She maintains her innocence, of course, as does Stu, but I don't know. I think it's the writings on the wall, clearly. So do you think Heather, she'll get prison time?
The problem is it depends on, so one of her arguments was that the government's complaint against her was too vague, which it is pretty vague, but they do that because they want to build, the government doesn't arrest you normally unless they have sufficient evidence to build that case. So yeah, well, that's we'll see what happens in March of 2022 and then we'll go from there. But we thank you guys for being here with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
So
this was really fun to talk about because I hadn't really deep dived into or deep dove.
Deep dived. I don't know.
I hadn't taken a deep dive.
A dive of depth.
How about that?
A dive of depth. Yes, so nice talking with you guys. Thank you.
Sinisterhood.